Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. I'm Sean Okimbaloya, Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. Nigeria is blessed, no doubt, but a lot of people will agree that the nation is not living to fullness of its potentials. We are the largest economy in Africa, yes, most populous black nation on earth, undoubtedly, perhaps with the highest number of natural resources under the ground. Put anything in the soil anywhere in Nigeria and you're almost guaranteed that it will yield harvest. Those are some of the issues, yeah. But sad scenarios such as the abundant crude oil we have, yet we cannot refine oil locally. We have enough cocoa, but we import chocolate. Enough sunlight, but we cannot transform it into electricity. The big question is, why is the nation not at the level expected of it? List some of the challenges of this country. From killings in several parts of the country, insurgency to banditry, kidnappings to power situation, corruption, name it. Oftentimes, it comes down to one thing. We have a badly structured polity. The constitution is faulty. We need to restructure Nigeria. This has been the agitations and debate over the years. Well, take a listen to some of the advocacies and the debate over some of the past years.
There cannot be any other option, in my view, than the determined and collective efforts by all Nigerians to mold a vibrant nation out of this multiplicity of nationalities that constitute the Federal Republic.
Nigeria must restructure its present governance architecture. And it must do so by returning to the true federalism.
We have obviously not done enough to realize national integration, and the survival of our democracy is still a work in progress.
If we devolve powers to the states and we shrink the exclusive legislative list and send these things back to the residual list, not even the concurrent, but the residual list, and give the states, the powers and the authority, constitutional authority to do some of these things that the federal government is doing, I think we would have done a lot. That's restructuring in and of itself.
We call on the president to realize that the country is in a very bad shape at the moment and requires statesmanship and not ethnic, religious, regional, and political partisanships. This is the time to renegotiate Nigeria along federal lines negotiated by our founding fathers to stem the tide of separatist feelings and agitations.
We need to unbundle the federal government. We need to shorten the number of things that the federal government takes on because they don't have the capacity to handle the things that they have lumped on themselves in the Constitution.
When I was in office in 2014, we considered a national conference made up of people across the country, cut across political parties and diverse interests. All groups from the youth to the oldest people in this country were there. And they came up with a series of recommendations that I believe, and I continue to believe, that if a number of them is implemented, it will surely improve the relationship we have in this country.
So many voices, different views, coming down to one thing, that we have a badly structured polity. So the ruling APC had, as part of his manifesto before the 2015 general elections, they said they want to restructure Nigeria. It said that in that document, and I quote, initiate action to amend our constitution with a view to devolving powers, duties, and responsibilities to states and local government in order to entrench true federalism and the federal spirit, end of quote. That has not happened in 4 years. Last year, a committee headed by the governor of Kaduna, said Malam Nasir El-Rufai, while presenting the document on their findings and submissions, said this. Take a listen to the governor.
Recommendations on fiscal federalism and revenue allocation, in which we've proposed amending section 162 and subsection 2 of the Constitution, as well as amend the Revenue Allocation of Revenue Federation Account, etc. Act to give more revenues to the states away and reduce the federal government share of revenues.
It is after that, it's been a year and about 4 months since that report was made ready. One of these is I've looked through the pages and perhaps what will form part of our conversation tonight. Not much has been heard from the APC on any commitment at that. Last week, the president, for the first time in a long time, said something that has tickled the critical mind on the need to reorganize what has been said to be a badly structured nation. Here the president, he said this last Friday.
Federalism is necessary at this juncture of our political and democratic evolution. At a time when some few privileged individuals and groups have chosen to exploit and manipulate the ethnic and religious fault lines for seeking personal and partisan advantage, we need to build bridges across the different divides and instill faith in the unity and indivisibility of one Nigeria.
That's President Muhammadu Buhari last Friday talking about true federalism and the necessity in our present democratic and political journey in Nigeria. Remember, at some point, when he was addressing the nation, he did say, look, to restructure Nigeria on the issue of true federalism has to be something to be taken to the National Assembly. All of this debate on the ground. If you look at the killings across some part of the country, the issues of our economy, how some states are performing. Some of them, after the federal government and the National Assembly approved the minimum wage, some of them have said they cannot even pay. So where do we go from here? Now, let's get to it, everyone. Does President Muhammadu Buhari mean what he said? And if he does, it will be a great news to see him take a decisive step on this. But how will that happen? There's been a lot of constitutional conferences in Nigeria where some of them are gathering dust in some shelves in Abuja. We'll be dissecting the issues tonight on Sunday Politics. I have joining me from our Abuja studio one of those who have been clamoring for restructuring in Nigeria, one of the leaders of the Middle Belt Forum, Dr. Bitrus is in our Abuja studio. Many thanks for coming on the program tonight, Dr. Pogu. Thank you for joining me. Let's begin the conversation, Dr. Pogu. Are you excited at a statement of President Muhammadu Buhari, considering that he has recognized that true federalism is the way to go?
One would only appreciate such a gesture. To me, it's a gesture to Nigerians, especially advocates of restructuring. Because if we start considering what he said, true federalism, to me it's the same thing or similar, because the federating units are the states. And what we have clamored for is that the Nigerian nation should be restructured in such a way that states would have greater say, greater participation, rather than having power concentrated at the center, as we inherited from the military era. And if President Buhari, when and if he is inaugurated as the president on 29th of May, decides now to implement true federalism, we will say welcome development and we'll support him, because that's what we are clamoring for. We believe that every state, if they would be able to control resources, have state police, be able to be in charge of security, Nigeria will be a better place than it is today. And our support, because we came out clearly to support the candidate of the PDP in the election that passed, not because of any other thing, but he said he was going to do some restructuring of the nation, which we believe is going to make things better. And if General Buhari now, President Buhari, when and if he's inaugurated, will go for true federalism, that is taking us to pre-Civil War period, though now the federating units are the states rather than the regions. It's a welcome development, and we will support him.
We do know that politicians, when elections are approaching, the issues of true federalism, restructuring often comes up. we've heard so many people that have talked about it. As soon as they get into power, that conversation is left and put under some files. Do you think, because considering the several constitutional conferences we've had, the reports that have come, emerged out of those conferences, and the fact that we're still where we are several years after we've started clamoring for restructuring, do you think any politician in office presently has a political will to effect true federalism or restructuring, as the case may be?
That is true. You see, we have a situation here where the country itself, after the election, is not yet moving in consonance. Though people feel that they didn't vote massively for the president. But of course, the president has been declared the winner. Atiku is in court. And it is for the president to try to calm nerves, because those of us who supported Atiku based our support on the issue of restructuring. And if he just made a political statement to calm nerves, so be it. But he will be judged by what he would do eventually if and when he is sworn into office. But for him to even think about it, to me, it's a good development. It means, yes, we may have a better future for the country. The insecurity, the fact that governors would even come and cry out and say they are not the chief security officers of their states, though ordinarily they are supposed to be, because the police or the soldiers are not under their control, could be addressed by through federalism. And we believe that whether he calls it restructuring or true federalism, to us is one and the same. We can achieve similar goals in both cases. What we would want to do is to encourage him that, yes, if and when he is sworn in after 29th May, he should swing into action and put the legislative framework and the constitutional requirements that would put us on course to implement true federalism. Of course, it will take some time, but those aspects that he can do without serious legislation, he should now kickstart them immediately. Then Nigeria will be a better place to live.
Dr. Pogu, let me show our viewers, wherever you may be watching, some of the critical items on the issue of restructuring debate. Issues including devolution of power, revenue sharing, state policing, exclusive lease. There's been a debate on how much of the powers in the exclusive lease need to be transferred, over 80 to less than 20 within the concurrent list, and the issues of fiscal federalism, state creation or remodeling it. Because some people are asking for more states. Some are saying that we should go back to regionalism, something that we saw after 1963. Some are saying that our government system and the size of government is over-bloated. Some are calling for resource control, and the sharing formula needs to be adjusted. Those are some of the issues. Dr. Pogu, if you look at some of these issues, and considering the fact that every nation at every point in their journey, they take a decision, a reaction to what they faced at a point in time. State policing, for example. Do you think the president might want to face the issue of true federalism, approaching it systemically, perhaps taking on one after the other? What are your thoughts on some of these lists?
All this can be addressed by the president. Of course, they will require the assistance of the National Assembly to make laws that would accommodate state policing, revenue sharing, the moving items from exclusively to the concurrent, and whatever would make the country truly federal. You see, we started with the British system in the first place. After the Civil War, during the Civil War, things changed. And we now have states replacing those regions which we had. And we see the states as the federating units in what we are now operating. Now, the president can start implementing these things by, first of all, looking at the 2014 Constitutional Conference recommendation. For example, even what he has done about the Northeast Development Commission, which he has inaugurated, on which day he also made the statement about the true federalism thing. That thing had a very solid recommendation in the 2014 Constitutional Conference, to the extent that some amounts from the federal allocation should be allotted to it. These things can all be accommodated, whether it is revenue allocation, whether it is policing, whether it's derivation, if it is necessary, because the derivation will not even be necessary. What is going to be necessary is states will control their resources and pay commission to the federal government to assist in running the federal system, and also those states that are not well developed. And in that system, all of us can be able to move ahead at our different paces, but in peace, knowing that, yes, we have a federation which we all belong to, and those that are lagging behind will start digging deep inward to generate enough revenue and run their states. I believe all this can be done, and it is achievable, it is doable. The president, if he is really sincere, as he said it, not politically minded, just to douse tension from people who feel that Atiku should be there rather than him, then we can have a good start towards achieving what would reunite Nigeria, what would douse tension, what would stop these unnecessary killings, unnecessary banditry, and unnecessary divides along religious and ethnic lines.
Dr. Bitrus, just for a moment, I wanted to bring my other guest at some point in the program, but I need to do that now. The issues are being thrown at the doorstep of the National Assembly, but we have one of the leaders of the National Assembly here. We have Professor Olushola Adeyeye. He's a Senate Chief Whip. He joins us on the program today. Thank you so much, Senator Adeyeye, for coming on the program tonight.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
You've been one of the people who have been clamoring for, you have said at some point that we have a badly structured constitution. And are you surprised that the president said at that point that true federalism is necessary for our nation right now?
No. I was not surprised at all. And the reason is simple. As you yourself did state, the APC gave him a manifesto that said in 2011 that our party was committed to taking a serious look at the Constitution. Unfortunately, when the president got into office, he met a motley of endless crises with seemingly intractable solutions. And therefore, it took him longer than most people expected.
Shouldn't that have been the priority?
At no time did the president go back from the commitment of the party to taking a serious look at the Constitution. You said, should we not have done this earlier? And I'm also glad that as part of this program, you also refer to the El-Rufai committee. That's an APC effort. Listen, sometimes we get so emotional about all the noise that we don't look at the substance of what is going on. And part of what had gone on in the last 4 years is that some bright people, and you may not always agree with El-Rufai, but granted to him, he's a bright man. I don't always agree with him. And part of what that committee also said was that there is a need to look at some of these things. But when they said them, it was almost as if nothing was being done. Had that been taken up, and had that been followed assiduously, by now we would have even made some incremental steps towards where we are trying to go. And I'm glad you asked.
Professor Adeyeye,
yes.
If I may quickly butt in.
Yes, please.
If you listen to some of the critics of your government and your party, is the fact that, look, you say you have met a lot of problems, but they will tell you that, first of all, fix the fundamentals of the problem, which is a bad constitution, which your party promised to fix. So is that not a failure of your own party?
I'm glad you have raised this issue. In fact, I felt like weeping when I saw people bashing Yemi Osinbajo every time on this matter, forgetting that as Attorney General of Lagos State, Yemi Osinbajo did more for federalism than any other soul in this country for 8 years. That's one thing. Secondly, I agree. The president should have said what he said recently much earlier on. I concede that. But the truth is, the business of amending the Constitution lies primarily in the National Assembly.
So you are part of it.
Of course.
But I will allow you to answer that question,
yes.
Prof, because we need to take this break, and we will come back. We take a break, and when we return, we shall be discussing more on what the nation really needs at this time. True federalism, is that the way out? Find out after now. Join us again, everyone.